Oh, hi there. Excuse me for one moment. Okay then. Tonight I'm gonna talk some more about COVID because it's a subject that's not going away, and there are many aspects to it that some people are unaware of. They don't think about that particular dimension of the subject. And it's an obvious one, too. However, I've not seen one news outlet most certainly call it what I'm going to call it, or anyone talk about it at all. And that is the COVID-19 rat race. What does that mean exactly? Well, it's obvious. COVID-19, believe it or not, economies are feeling a definite crunch, especially in certain sectors. However, COVID-19, the chase for the vaccination is good business. The first company to successfully create a vaccination that is safe enough for the general public will make absurd amounts of money. In fact, it is surprising that, in my opinion, the Chinese did most certainly release this virus on purpose. Why didn't they create a vaccination beforehand? Or did they? And they're just not telling anybody. Like, this is China's Rubik's Cube for the world, and for them to create a vaccination from it as quickly as possible. That is a possibility. Hold the world ransom for some terrible plague that they know the only preventative tool that is effective for. Let's remember the trade war here. The trade war was big topic before COVID-19 came along, especially with Donald Trump's presidency, because there are many reasons why doing trading with China is most certainly a bad thing. You will get people who say, no, it's good because this, that, and the other, and it's those people have something wrong with them. Something very wrong with them. I couldn't tell you exactly what. But anyway, doing trade with them is most certainly a bad thing. And, this rat race I spoke of, there are many, many countries that have competent pharmaceutical industries. And a lot of them are tied in with each other, through economic and business practices and general rules and laws that supersede nationality, depending on what regions you're talking about. Not to say it's unethical, because it is totally unethical. The media always tries to spin it that the vaccination and the people trying to create it are there to help people. No, they're there to make money. End of story. COVID-19 is simply not killing enough people for it to be considered a national priority, despite what the television says. Television lies. Somebody could have COVID-19 and get hit by a bus. They'll say it was a COVID-19 death, and it wasn't. It was a person got hit by a bus. So they inflate the figures, and now that more testing's available, not that I know because I never looked, but there's I've heard it's more available now. Of course, they have to drive up the number of positive cases. And this asymptomatic thing was a prime example of them covering it up so that they can bolster the statistics for COVID-19. No such thing as asymptomatic. You either have it or you don't. Or you have it at such a low level in your body that it can't hurt you. And I think it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're 24 or you're 90, COVID-19 at that low a dose will prove positive on a test, but it won't affect your body in any way because it's too low a dose. And this rat race that I spoke of, I mean, obviously Canada is a major player, but it gets brought down to regional levels as well. I mean, Bonnie Henry's team would most certainly like to get that vaccination first of all. But they have many competitors, not just the States, but many places in Europe have competent pharmaceutical industries as well. And then the Russians, where it's all state-backed. I mean, all pharmaceutical companies are state-backed, but and most especially in Russia and many other countries, they have their quotas, but yeah, they can spend money. And yeah, this virus, it looks like a cash cow for certain people. It's the same thing as how in world wars and just about every other war, there were people who made absurd amounts of money out of the misery of others. And not only that, but did not care about the misery of others. They cared about them making money because they did not distribute it to the people who suffered from those tragic times in history. And the same thing is with this COVID-19. Whichever entity makes the vaccination that's safe enough, quote unquote, for humans, and it is widely distributed, will make a shit ton of money. Bonnie Henry was someone I mentioned in my last video as being someone who is probably worth more money today than she was before COVID-19. Almost guaranteed. And there is the difference between money and power. Her power has gone up exponentially, probably more so than her money. And power is often more important than money. With power, you can gain money, plus you have the power. If you just have money, a fool and his money are soon parted. And these pharmaceutical companies and Bonnie Henry are not going to give that money to people. Because there's always bigger projects for them to work on. There's always reasons for them to lie. There's always reasons for them to cheat. And, basically get around any problems that get between them and their money, because what people don't understand about greed and money is that there is a point where someone is content with the amount of money they have. They're not really craving power, and the amount of money they have is exactly what they want, because there is such a thing as having too much money. A lot of people think that, those guys who play in the NHL who sign $100 million contracts are in full control of their money. They are not. It's the same with any other sport. Sure, they can spend money here and there, but are they allowed to invest it in certain projects that they would be interested in seeing because of their political bias, which everybody has once you get to the upper stratosphere of world government? You obviously want your sides of the arguments to do a little bit better. And that is where, when a person has too much money and they crave power because they want to see the world molded in the image they would prefer to see it in, that is when greed becomes out of control. I mean, it is very true. You can only drive one car at a time. You can only have one suit at a time. You can only eat so much lobster. You can only drink so many bottles of champagne. And when you factor those in, those do not equate to the giant $100 million numbers. They just don't, unless you're overpaying for everything, which actually happens to some celebrities because they live in their own private little world. And then all of a sudden, you know, they don't care because they have so much money. And then all of a sudden they do care because they have no money left. Because they didn't keep track of how much money they were spending. And, you know, that happens. Celebrities go broke. They become uninteresting, and people don't care for whatever it was that made them important in the first place anymore. And they don't have the money to push their way back in, so they become nobodies. Bonnie Henry does not want to become a nobody. She is one of the most powerful figureheads in Canada because she's been quite successful at what she's done. I'm pretty sure in every other province, anyone could name Bonnie Henry, but do you think I know who the equivalent is in Alberta or Ottawa? Couldn't be bothered, don't give a damn. The thing about her is she presents herself as, you know, almost like a school teacher or something like that. And the reality is she's a horrible person who stands to make a lot of money out of this project if she's running in the right circles to make the right vaccination. And when I say right, you know, that's with a question mark. Because it is nations that are competing against each other, but the inner workings of the nations and where the industrial capabilities are, the finances, all this sort of stuff, it comes from all places in the world. If you can help make somebody's product better, they'll hire you. It doesn't matter where you're from, except for China. Right now, normally they would hire someone from China because they're greedy capitalists, but this time around they're not going to probably do that so much. So, I mean, you get the Danes, they're sticking their hands in the cookie pot as well in other countries, trying to get part of the winning team to get that vaccination. I use the Danes because they made a medication that I was forced to take that caused me to have a sore throat for 7 years. So, yeah, I don't like the Danes too much, to be completely honest with you. They're a bunch of cunts. Yeah. And the thing about rat races is they literally are rat races. These people, metaphorically, are going to be clawing, biting them their way to the top. They're going to be kicking, pushing, shoving, every conceivable way of climbing to the top of that rat mountain to win. And Bonnie Henry is no different. Now, whether she takes a pile of sedatives before she goes on television or not, who's to know? But I will say that she is a fraud and a phony, as I've said before. And basically, the whole mindset of what the government's doing is wrong. For one thing, they're trying to turn it around into a success story for the government that they limited the infections. They're controlling it. They're quarantining the infections. They're working diligently to get this cure for the people as quickly as possible. And then you ignore all the crooked little bent things that they're doing. And if you take that into consideration, them pretending to be the good guys makes them even more despicable. Um, because it doesn't matter what people want to believe, what they're predisposed to thinking, because they're easily fooled by a calm, nice demeanor. If somebody's lying to you and you believe it, they win. And if Bonnie Henry gets this vaccination going, she will make an absurd amount of money. And even if she doesn't, she's gained so much publicity because of COVID that it will jumpstart career opportunities for her in the future. And make no mistake, Bonnie Henry is a rat. And she'll do exactly what all rats do when they want something and there's only one of it. And there's a lot of rats out there. It's this, oh, everyone's a champion. They're working together as a team to beat this thing. The government is doing everything in its power, and this is a horrible time for people, but cheer up. We're working on it. And it's like, fuck you. You're probably the reason we have it in the fucking first place. And I don't mean Trump starting the trade war with China. I mean the crooked businessmen, including the pharmaceutical industry, that had business dealings with China, knowing how untrustworthy they are for all these years, and it getting to the point where they go, we can't keep doing business with this type of people because they just want more, and they're demanding it. And there are plenty of people who will buckle under that kind of pressure, and we can't have people buckling under that kind of pressure. Or else, what's to stop COVID-20 from coming out next week? Problem all over again. This COVID-19, it is it's a business venture. It's not a pandemic. It's a business venture. And the obscene amounts of money that are being placed in different areas is repugnant. Absolutely repugnant. So, that wouldn't have been any information somebody capable of thinking wouldn't have thought of. But you'd be surprised at how many people out there really don't think for themselves. They have someone else do the thinking for them. They just think that they think for themselves when they repeat what they've heard from somebody else, because they don't have that brain capability of understanding things for themselves. I gotta tell you, all those pharmaceutical experts, definitely the WHO, World Health Organization, and other government bodies are all rats. And they'll tear each other to pieces to get that vaccination and make that money. And when you think about it, does that make them good people if they do come up with a vaccination? That they're going to have to do a bunch of horrible things. And this is getting beyond the point of actually creating the vaccine, because somebody can create the vaccine, but as you well know, rats can also be thieves and steal the vaccination secrets from other countries and other pharmaceutical companies. And this most certainly will happen, especially in this day and age of espionage, blackmail, and all the other bad words that are associated mostly with mafia type things. Who knows? Maybe they'll see fit that the virus hangs around for a few years so that they somehow make more money out of that. Let's not forget, before this story, one of the big stories was the LGBT movement and certain people trying to transition into a different gender. Yeah, I know that sounds like something an insane person would conjure up, but that was actually a thing on the television. And the medical science behind that was a money-making juggernaut as well, for whatever twisted reason. I think they were looking at it more from an evolutionary point of view, rather than invasive surgery. I don't think that will ever work. I don't think the scientific community ever did think it would work. However, there are many creatures from the real world that scientists are able to figure out how they evolved to the state that they're in, and they may have figured how can they apply this to humans for some reason that is beyond rational comprehension. I mean, that was a story, and guess what? The Western powers were working probably in collaboration with the Chinese Communist Party on that particular subject, and maybe that's part of the trade deal that Trump opposed because he's not a neoliberal. Neoliberals are out of control and have a warped, twisted sense of reality. I understand liberalism is okay in the correct dosages, but there are neoliberals out there who have drastic opinions on what the world should be. And you can choose to believe them if you want, but you'd be wrong. And we'll see if a vaccination does turn up on the market at some point. I did watch a thing with Kamala Harris, the running vice president, that she would not trust Donald Trump. She didn't want to say she wouldn't take a vaccination if it were under Trump's administration, which is a bit hypocritical because she would most certainly expect Trump to take one under their administration, and they've shown no sign of competency or trustworthiness. And not only that, Donald Trump doesn't actually have any direct doings with the pharmaceutical industry. They are an entity and a powerhouse of their own. I mean, Donald Trump might have some influence in it, but they're the experts. Donald Trump's not there with a beaker in his hand mixing formulas. That's not happening. He does other things. So, to not trust the scientific researchers on a certain subject because it's under a different administration is retarded. But you can trust that they all are out it for the glory, the money, and the fact that after they create this vaccine, they can more or less act like a sponge on the community of the pharmaceutical industry, like many other inventors of cures, vaccinations, treatments, and all that sort of stuff. They can coast on their one victory. Like kind of how like the Calgary Flames, they coast on the victory of winning the Stanley Cup that one time. Oh, isn't the idea to win it every year? When you think about it. Rather than, do one thing and then, somehow get forever praised for that and never have to do another day of work in your life, except for, sort of being lazy and watching, other scientific advancements in this particular subject. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. So I will talk to you people later. Have a good one. And most importantly, cheers.